we have successfully mapped 100% of the surface of Mars. We have high-definition photographs of distant galaxies, and we can track the exact orbital path of a comet millions of miles away. Yet here on our own planet, more than 80% of our ocean remains completely unmapped, unobserved, and unexplored. It is a pitch-black, crushing void that covers most of our world. And occasionally, when the waters recede or our technology pierces through the abyss, the ocean spits out a secret. Today, we are going to dive into the dark. We are looking at 5 physical, deeply documented artifacts and structures pulled from the ocean floor that completely shatter our understanding of human history. These aren't myths. These aren't legends. These are real, tangible anomalies that scientists, archaeologists, and marine biologists still don't fully understand. Have you ever wondered if the timeline of history we are taught in school is missing a chapter? Or maybe an entire book? Buckle up, because what we are about to look at proves that the deep blue sea is hiding an ancient past that, quite frankly, shouldn't exist. 5. The Bimini Road, nature's blueprint or a sunken empire. We begin our journey in the shallow, sunlit waters off the coast of the Bahamas. The year is 1968. A subsea archaeologist named J. Manson Valentine is diving in just 18 feet of water near the island of North Bimini. He isn't looking for a lost civilization. He's studying the marine ecosystem. But as he swims over the seabed, he spots something that makes his blood run cold. Stretching out for nearly half a mile across the ocean floor is a perfectly aligned, geometric pathway. This structure, now known as the Bimini Road, consists of massive, rectangular limestone blocks. Some of these blocks measure up to 13 feet across. They are laid out in 2 parallel, incredibly uniform lines, ending in a distinct J shape. What makes the Bimini Road so staggering is the sheer order of it. The stones appear to be deliberately cut, featuring smoothed edges and right angles that defy natural erosion. Upon closer inspection, researchers found that the stones don't just sit on the sand. They are propped up by smaller stones underneath, acting as leveling shims, a common technique used in ancient masonry to ensure a flat surface. But here is where the science collides with the inexplicable. Mainstream geologists argue that the Bimini Road is merely a natural phenomenon, a geological formation called tessellated pavement, where beach rock naturally fractures into rectangular blocks over millennia. Yet this explanation fails to satisfy many structural engineers and independent archaeologists. If it is entirely natural, why are there multiple distinct layers of stone? Why do core samples show that the chemical composition of the blocks is entirely different from the bedrock beneath them, suggesting they were brought there from somewhere else? Even stranger, decades before its discovery, the infamous American mystic Edgar Cayce explicitly predicted that the ruins of an ancient civilization would be discovered off the coast of Bimini in the year 1968. In exactly that year, J. Manson Valentine found the road. No one can explain exactly how a natural geological fracture could mimic human engineering so perfectly. Are we looking at a strange coincidence of nature? Or the ancient driveway to an empire swallowed by the Atlantic at the end of the last ice age? 4. The Baltic Sea Anomaly, the UFO of the abyss. If a submerged road leaves room for geological debate, our next discovery absolutely obliterates it. We are moving from the warm waters of the Caribbean to the freezing, unforgiving depths of the Baltic Sea. In June 2011, a Swedish deep ocean salvage team known as Ocean X, led by explorer Peter Lindberg, was hunting for the wreckage of centuries-old shipwrecks. They were dragging a side-scan sonar at a depth of 300 feet when their monitors suddenly displayed an image that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. Resting on the ocean floor was a massive, perfectly circular object, 200 feet in diameter. With its distinctive wedge shapes, strange corridors, and dome-like center, it bore a chilling, almost uncanny resemblance to the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. But the shape isn't the most shocking part. Behind this massive structure is a 1,000-foot-long drag mark dug deeply into the seabed, perfectly aligned with the object. It looks exactly as if a colossal craft plummeted from the sky, hit the ocean floor, and skidded to a halt. When the Ocean X team finally sent divers down to physically touch the anomaly, Things went from strange to downright terrifying. As their submersible approached within 200 meters of the object, all of their electronic equipment, satellites, sonar, and cameras, spontaneously shut down. When they backed away, the systems rebooted. When they approached again, complete blackout. The divers managed to chip off a piece of the structure and bring it to the surface. When scientists at the Weizmann Institute of Science analyzed the sample, they were stunned. The object was composed of limonite and goethite. These are metallic compounds that do not form naturally in marine environments. Scientists still don't fully understand what is resting at the bottom of the Baltic. Some claim it is an incredibly bizarre glacial deposit dropped during the Ice Age. Others suggest it was a top-secret Nazi anti-submarine device built during World War II. But a 200-foot-wide geometric disc of non-marine metals that actively jams modern electronics? That shouldn't exist. Whatever it is still sitting there, frozen in the dark. 3. The Yonaguni Monument, the submerged ziggurat. If that wasn't surprising enough, what lies off the coast of Japan forces us to question the entire timeline of human civilization. In 1986, a local dive tour operator named Kihachiro Aratake was exploring the waters off the coast of Yonaguni-jima, looking for new spots to observe hammerhead sharks. Plunging 80 feet below the surface, he was suddenly confronted by a monolithic, terraced mountain of stone. It was 165 feet long and 65 feet wide. It featured massive, perfectly flat platforms, sheer drops, and sharp 90-degree internal and external angles. It looked exactly like a Mayan ziggurat or an ancient Mesopotamian pyramid. As marine geologists and historians descended upon Yonaguni, a fierce war of words erupted. The establishment insisted that the monument was just another natural formation, sandstone that fractures along horizontal and vertical planes due to strong underwater currents and seismic activity. But Dr. Masaki Kimura, a marine seismologist from the University of the Ryukyus, spent 15 years diving the site. He mapped it inch by inch, and his findings are staggering. Dr. Kimura identified distinct, undeniable features of human engineering. He found what appears to be a retaining wall, a water drainage system, carved steps, a massive stone archway, and even what looks like an arena. He also discovered tool marks and strange animal-like carvings etched into the stone faces. Here is the problem. The monument is attached to the bedrock. Based on the geological history of the region, the last time this piece of rock was above water, meaning the last time humans could have physically stood on it and carved it, was over 10,000 years ago, during the end of the last Ice Age. According to mainstream history, 10,000 years ago, humans were primitive hunter-gatherers living in caves, entirely incapable of moving, let alone engineering, monolithic megastructures with laser-like precision. Look closely at these right angles. Look at the steps. Does this look like the random work of water erosion to you? Or are we staring at the drowned ghost of an advanced civilization that was wiped off the map before written history even began? 2. The Antikythera Mechanism, the 2,000-year-old computer. Now let's move from giant megaliths to an artifact of such microscopic precision that its discovery completely derailed the history of engineering. In the spring of 1901, a group of Greek sponge divers sought shelter from a violent storm near the tiny island of Antikythera. When the storm passed, they decided to dive the unfamiliar waters. At a depth of 150 feet, they found the rotting remains of a Roman cargo ship that had sank in the 1st century BC. Among the marble statues and amphorae, they recovered a shoebox-sized lump of corroded bronze and wood. It was ignored for decades, sitting in a museum storage room. But years later, when the artifact dried out and split open, it revealed something impossible: a highly complex system of interlocking triangular teeth and bronze gears. Decades of intensive study using high-resolution X-ray tomography revealed that this object, known as the Antikythera Mechanism, contained at least 37 precision-cut bronze gears, dials, and inscriptions. It wasn't a clock. It was an analog computer. Built around 150 BC, this device was capable of tracking the exact positions of the Sun, the Moon, and the 5 planets known in antiquity. It could predict lunar and solar eclipses decades in advance with pinpoint mathematical accuracy. It accounted for the elliptical orbit of the Moon, adjusting its speed mechanically using a pin and slot epicyclic gear system. This level of miniaturization and mechanical complexity is not just impressive, it is historically impossible. Epicyclic gearing and differential mechanics of this caliber did not appear again in human history until the 14th century, when the first mechanical clocks were built in Europe. That is a technological gap of over 1,500 years. To put this into perspective, finding the Antikythera Mechanism on a 2,000-year-old shipwreck is the equivalent of opening a medieval tomb and finding a functioning iPhone. Scientists are left with a terrifying, unanswered question. If the ancient Greeks had the technology to build a masterclass analog computer, what else did they build? Technology like this doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It requires centuries of trial, error, and industrial infrastructure. Where is the rest of their technology? Why is this the only mechanism of its kind ever found? Was it a singular stroke of genius? Or did the ocean swallow an entire era of high technology that we are completely unaware of? 1. The Cuban Underwater City, the Forbidden Abyss. But it gets even stranger. Every artifact we have explored so far was found relatively close to the surface. But our final anomaly was discovered in a place so deep, so inaccessible, and so terrifying that it threatens to rewrite human origins entirely. In 2001, a marine exploration company called Advanced Digital Communications was contracted by the Cuban government to map the seafloor off the Guanahatabibes Peninsula. They were looking for sunken Spanish galleons carrying gold. Instead, their deep-sea sonar picked up something that made the researchers freeze in their chairs. At a staggering depth of between 2,000 and 2,460 feet, nearly half a mile straight down into the abyssal black, their sonar mapped a sprawling 2-square-kilometer complex of pale, granite-like stone. The images transmitted back to the surface were indisputable. The sonar showed symmetrical blocks, some measuring 16 feet high, arranged in urban, geometric formations. There were distinct crests, perfectly parallel lines, pyramids, and circular structures that looked exactly like a sprawling, meticulously planned city. Pauline Zalitsky, a marine engineer on the project, noted that the structures were composed of granite, a type of stone not naturally found in Cuba or the surrounding seabed. When the story broke, National Geographic showed intense interest, and the global archaeological community held its breath. But then, the scientific paradox hit them. For a city to be built on dry land and then submerged to a depth of 2,460 feet, the tectonic subsidence would have taken a minimum of 50,000 years. Let that sink in. 50,000 years. According to every textbook on Earth, 50,000 years ago, anatomically modern humans were barely figuring out how to survive the elements, much less carving massive granite pyramids and engineering an urban metropolis. It completely shatters the timeline of evolution. And then, the strangest thing of all happened. Following the initial press release in 2001, the story vanished. Expeditions were supposedly planned, but no physical footage was ever released. The Cuban Underwater City became a ghost, swallowed by institutional silence and the crushing pressure of the deep Atlantic. Scientists still don't fully understand what is down there. Is it an unprecedented, geometrically perfect natural anomaly? Or is it the ultimate proof that an advanced, global civilization existed tens of thousands of years before the Sumerians or the Egyptians, only to be wiped out by a cataclysmic flood? What is waiting down there in the dark? And why has the investigation suddenly gone completely silent? We look up at the stars and wonder what secrets are hiding in the vastness of space. But the truth is, we are strangers on our own planet. The ocean is the ultimate vault. It is a flawless, uncompromising keeper of secrets. It does not care about our textbooks, our accepted timelines, or human pride. From the bizarre mechanics of Antikythera to the monolithic ruins of Yonaguni and Cuba, The deep blue sea provides undeniable physical evidence that human history is not a straight, simple line from primitive to advanced. It is a cycle of rises and falls, of incredible technological peaks and devastating watery resets. As technology advances, and as we push our submersibles deeper into the abyss, we have to prepare ourselves for an uncomfortable reality. The next discovery might not just change our history books, it might completely erase them.